Hello, everybody out there in YouTube land, all my peeps in the chat room, all my lurkers, and everybody that'll be viewing this later on Memorex. Glad to have you with me here on the 20th day of September 2016. Oh my goodness, I tell you, it's a pretty day outside. There's barely any leaves twitching on the trees.
Hello, everybody.
It's going to be a wonderful day today. I think the temperatures are going to be in the mid 70s. So it's going to be nice here. I hope it's nice where you are. We have a lot of things going on in the news, but before I get to that, I want to remind you that tomorrow we will have the news at noon, and then at 2 p.m., Barry Littleton will be with me. And it's going to be one heck of a show. Barry is a wonderful guest. He's very well read. He's an alien experiencer. He has a lot of wonderful information, and I hope everybody will join us in the chat room for that at 2 p.m. tomorrow Eastern Time. And bring your questions. Barry loves questions. So we hope we have a lot of interested people in the things that he has to bring to us. And if you don't know who he is, you can look him up on YouTube. He's got some videos on YouTube. You can look him up on Facebook. There's a lot of interesting things he has posted on Facebook. And it's Barry, B-A-R-R-Y, Littleton, L-I-T-T-L-E-T-O-N. So hope you're all with us there tomorrow at 2 p.m. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump on into the news. The first one that we have for you is off of BizPac Review. It says, more bombs. 5 more devices found in New Jersey train station. One explodes as the bomb squad tries to neutralize it. With the New York, New Jersey area already jittery, and with good reason, 5 suspicious devices were found in a backpack near an Elizabeth, New Jersey train station Sunday night, with one of the devices exploding when approached by the bomb squad robot. 2 men found the package in a trash can and called police after seeing wires and pipe coming out of it. The grisly find comes one day after bomb exploded in nearby Manhattan, injuring 29 people, and a second bomb exploded along the route of a Marine Corps Semper 5 charity run in New Jersey. Another device in the form of a pressure cooker was found blocks away from the scene of the New York bombing. More from Fox News on the device that exploded Sunday night as the bomb squad robot tried to disarm it and the impact these incidents are having on transportation in the region. Media at the scene reported hearing a loud explosion and smelling gunpowder at around 12:40 a.m. Monday after Bolwedge said earlier that the Union County bomb squad's robotic device indicated that the package could have been a live bomb. There was no report of injuries following the explosion. Bolwedge said the FBI and state police would decide how to remove the devices. New Jersey Transit service was suspended early Monday between Newark Liberty Airport and Elizabeth, and New Jersey-bound Amtrak trains were being held at New York Penn Station, officials said. And there is a video in this if you'd like to take a look at it. It says the moment of explosion can be seen here from NBC News. So that is available. All these URLs are in the description of the video if you'd like to take a look at them. The next one here is off of Fox News, and it says, Watchdog, feds wrongly granted citizenship to hundreds facing deportation. 800 illegal immigrants from countries of concern who were set for deportation were mistakenly granted U.S. citizenship because the Department of Homeland Security didn't have their fingerprints on file, according to an internal audit released on Monday. And we have something trying to play here. See if we can get this stopped. There we go. The Homeland Security Department's Inspector General found the immigrants used different names or birth dates to apply for citizenship within the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration. In the cases of 858 immigrants from special interest countries or neighboring countries with high rates of immigration fraud, the discrepancies weren't caught because their fingerprints were missing from government databases. The findings were released, incidentally, as authorities were investigating a string of weekend attacks allegedly connecting foreign-born suspects. The Inspector General report could further fuel warnings about immigration security. The report warned that when immigrants become naturalized, these individuals retain many of the rights and privileges of U.S. citizenship, including serving in law enforcement, obtaining a security clearance, and sponsoring other aliens' entry into the United States. The tally in the report was provided by the administration in mid-2014, but the problem could be even worse. According to the audit, as of November 2015, the administration has found 953 more who had final deportation orders under another identity and had been neutralized, some of whom were countries of concern. DHS Inspector General John Roth also found fingerprints missing from federal databases as for many as 315,000 immigrants with final deportation orders or who are fugitive criminals. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has not reviewed about 148,000 of those immigrant files to add fingerprints to the digital record. This situation created opportunities for individuals to gain the rights and privileges of the U.S. citizenship through fraud, Ross said. To prevent fraud and ensure thorough review of naturalization applications, USCIS needs to access these fingerprint records. Roth added that DHS has agreed to the recommendations made in the audit and that ICE has plans to review the eligibility of each naturalized citizen whose fingerprint records reveal a deportation order under a different identity. The gap in fingerprints was created because older paper records were never added to fingerprint databases created by both the now defunct Immigration and Naturalization Service and the FBI in the 1990s. ICE, the DHS agency responsible for finding and deporting immigrants living in the country illegally, didn't consistently add digital fingerprint records of immigrants who agents countered until 2010. The government has known about the information gap and its impact on naturalization decisions since at least 2008, when a Customs and Border Protection official identified 206 immigrants who used a different name or other biographical information to gain citizenship or other immigration benefits, though few cases have been investigated. Ross' report said federal prosecutors have accepted 2 criminal cases that led to the immigrants being stripped of their citizenship, but prosecutors declined another 26 cases. ICE is investigating 32 other cases after closing 90 investigations. ICE officials told auditors the agency hadn't pursued many of these cases in the past because federal prosecutors did not accept immigration benefit fraud cases. ICE said the Justice Department has now agreed to focus on cases involving people who have acquired security clearance, jobs of public trust, or other security credentials. Mistakenly awarding citizenship to someone ordered have serious consequences because U.S. citizens can typically apply for and receive security clearances or take security-sensitive jobs. At least 3 of the immigrants turned citizen were able to acquire aviation or transportation worker credentials, granting them access to secure areas in airports or maritime facilities and vessels. Their credentials were revoked after they were identified as having been granted citizenship improperly, Ross said in his report. A 4th person is now a law enforcement officer. Ross recommended that all of the outstanding cases be reviewed and fingerprints in those cases be added to the government's database, and that immigration enforcement officials create a system to evaluate each of the cases of immigrants who were improperly granted citizenship. DHS officials agreed with the recommendations and said the agency is working to implement the changes. Well, I don't know about you, but I have a big problem with this because they know every move we make. They know everything that we do. They're monitoring our computers. They're monitoring our phones. They monitor everything we look at on the internet and can give you ads for anything that you happen to have looked up online or looked at. Even if you're looking at it for somebody else, you get an ad about it. If you go to purchase a gun, they have to do a background check on you that tells them everything they need to know about you, and they can't document these people. And they grant them citizenship that allows them to get credentials to work in aviation transportation and become law enforcement officers? Are you kidding me? You tell me this isn't contrived. All right, next one. Let's see what other fun things they have in store for us here. This is off of UPI.com. Security ahead of the UN General Assembly. Says New York City is increasing security as world leaders converge for the UN General Assembly by deploying an additional 1,000 police and National Guard troops in the wake of bombings in Manhattan and New Jersey. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo said on Sunday that he and other officials made the decision to increase security deployment to believe at this time there is any immediate threat, following an explosion on Saturday in Manhattan's Chelsea neighborhood that injured 29. And now it's jumping around on me. Let's see here. It says the 1,000 additional security personnel will be deployed to bus terminals, airports, and subway stations throughout the state. I want New Yorkers to be confident when they go back to work on Monday that New York is up and running and that we're doing everything we need to do. And I feel comfortable that this additional deployment will help do that and is prudent on this occasion, Cuomo said, referring to the arrival of heads of state from around the world. President Barack Obama, who arrived in New York City on Sunday, is scheduled to speak at the 71st session of the UN General Assembly on Tuesday, his final address to the chamber as the U.S. president. The Metropolitan Transportation Authority is increasing security patrols and bag checks in New York City. You should know that you will see very substantial NYPD presence this week, bigger than ever, the New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio said Sunday. We would normally have expanded presence for the United Nations General Assembly. You will see an even stronger presence now. De Blasio has called on New York residents to be aware of possible security threats. Be vigilant because the police need your help. And if you see anything that might be pertinent to the case, we need you to call it in, de Blasio added. So there's that information. The next one that we have here says this is off 100%fedup.com. Unreal. Minnesota governor tells constituents to leave the state if they don't like the massive influx of Muslims. Of course, he's not opposed to bringing in the Syrian Muslims, even though the FBI director has said we cannot properly vet them. And there is a video in this that where he actually just tells people to leave the state if they don't like the Muslim refugees. Unreal. It says Dayton released a statement Monday saying he's been assured by the White House that any refugees from the war-torn country would be subject to the highest level of security checks of any category of traveler to the United States. Really? Now, what did we just read about 800 of them being granted citizenship that weren't vetted? Well, maybe he didn't read that. Governor tells citizens to leave the state. Who the heck voted this guy in as governor? His constituents should be his first priority. If you haven't heard, Minnesota Muslims have been a problem from the beginning. Here's a video to fill you in on just how much they don't want to assimilate Sharia for everyone. So you can watch these videos in this if you'd like to see what's going on. Holy smoke. Governor Mark Dayton took advantage of the St. Cloud NAACP community conversation to express his feelings toward constituents who would rather live in Minnesota than in let me try that again. Would rather live in Minnesota than in New Somalia. Almost couldn't get that out. Holy smoke. Look around you. This is Minnesota, Dayton said. Minnesota is not like it was 30 to 50 years ago. This is Minnesota. You have every right to be here, and anybody who can't accept your right to be here, and this is Minnesota, should find another state. Minnesota isn't what it was like 5 years ago. The government is displacing the population with unskilled Muslims from Africa at a blitzkrieg pace, it says. Apparently, some Minnesotans who have to pick up the tab for the welfare colonists don't appreciate having their state given away to the modern equivalent of a conquering army. Dayton's message to them is clear. If you are that intolerant, if you are that much of a racist or bigot, then find another state. Find a state where the minority population is 1% or whatever. It's not that in Minnesota, and it's not going to be again, he says. That's for sure. Demographic damage people like Dayton are deliberately inflicting is permanent. In the past, most people would fight to the death to prevent their society from being invaded and destroyed by hostile and utterly alien foreign culture. But liberals are sure that if they just brandish the word racist, citizens will meekly cringe and cower. Unsurprisingly, the Hamas-affiliated Islamic advocacy group CAIR was present. CAIR Minnesota Executive Director Jaylani Hussein, who had previously addressed the crowd on his concerns on racial tension, said his organization is not affiliated with terrorist groups. This, of course, is a brazen lie, but it hardly matters thanks to the participant of our treasonous ruling class. Hydra has become a more effective form of jihad than terrorism. It could not be more obvious that our liberal rulers are as hostile as they are arrogant toward the people they supposedly represent. They are deliberately destroying our society through massive importation of largely unassimilatable and government-dependent immigrants from the third world. They do not expect us to like it. They expect us to bite the pillow and take it. The price for doing so, instead of rising up against these quislings, will be the highest society could possibly pay: the future. Wow. Well, it sounds to me like Minnesota needs to raise up. Man. The next one we have here is off of jihadywatch.org. It says Utah elementary school evacuated after Muslim threatens to blow it up. In August 2013, Colorado police warned churches about Craig, who was saying that Mormons and Catholics would be destroyed in the coming weeks. And here he is running around loose and threatening an elementary school 3 years later. What will authorities say when he makes good on one of these threats? Man in custody. Email to media describes bomb threat, says elementary school intruder is former Utah State Eastern basketball coach, by Aaron Alberti and Nick Parker of the Salt Lake Tribune on September the 19th. And it says, a man is in custody after he allegedly told staff at an Eagle Mountain Elementary School to evacuate so no one would get hurt. Eagle Valley Elementary was evacuated Monday afternoon after a masked man entered the front office and said to evacuate all the students so nobody would get hurt, according to the school official. Kimberly Bird, assistant to the Alpine School District Superintendent, confirmed that the elementary had been evacuated and that all students and employees were safe and accounted for Monday evening. Police took into custody about 5 p.m. a man they suspected to be the intruder. Utah County Sheriff Sergeant Spencer Cannon said that police were investigating a possible bomb threat at the school located at 4475 North Heritage Drive. The intruder was wearing a long light green tunic and ski mask, Cannon said, and was lying next to a car outside the front of the school Monday evening. Police used a robot with a microphone to communicate with the man, who read them a speech about perceived social injustices related to an email he says he sent to the media. In the message sent to the Salt Lake Tribune and other news organizations, someone identifying himself as Christopher Craig and as radical Islamic jihadist Muhammad Allah al-Kahir said the sender would call 911 with a threat of an explosive at the school. The email describes a promised bomb threat and a hunger strike he plans to conduct in jail. Qadar means green, hence perhaps the lovely shade of his robe. Racism is the reason for my hunger strike, the email reads. To take this conversation deeper to the truth, core, and roots. The sender says he will await the return of Prophet Isa, the name for Jesus Christ in the Quran. Titled in honor of Skylar Dorr, an allusion to a Louisiana police chief who was fired after a Facebook post about the death of white police officers in Baton Rouge. The email was sent to media outlets, Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, and others. Christopher DeWitt Craig was Utah State University Eastern head basketball coach who has called himself an Islamic jihadist in prior brushes with the law. In August 2013, Colorado police warned churches about Craig, who was saying that Mormons and Catholics would be destroyed in the coming weeks. Wow. The next one we have here is off of LibertyWritersNews.com. It says, the media is silent. Minnesota hero kills ISIS terrorist in the mall and gets snubbed by the media, and this is why. 9 people were seriously injured when an ISIS operative attacked innocent shoppers at a Minnesota mall on Saturday. 22-year-old Somali immigrant went on a stabbing rampage and was finally stopped by a gentleman named Jason Falconer. Reports say the suspect clearly had a knife in hand and lunged at Falconer, who fired at him. The suspect fell, then got back up 3 times before the fatal shot. Falconer is a hero whose face should be plastered on every television screen, but instead is only being vaguely referred to as an off-duty police officer. The reason? Jason Falconer is a USPSA shooter, 3-gunner, and NRA certified firearms instructor. Falconer is president and owner of Tactical Advantage LLC, a shooting range and tactical training facility with a strong focus on arming concealed carriers. He's also a former chief of the Albany, Minnesota Police Department, and he remains a part-time officer. If this off-duty police officer had not been armed, this terrorist attack would have been much worse. Falconer selflessly saved the lives of those people and was able to do it because of his Second Amendment right to protect himself. The very same right the Democrats are trying to infringe upon. The media is attempting to cover up the fact that creating and training armed citizens is a major part of the man who took out the terrorist in a Minnesota mall this weekend. We need to give Jason Falconer the recognition he deserves and show his face everywhere. So there is that article for you. And the next one we have is off of BizPac Review. It says, what this guy did at Chelsea explosion site caused big, beautiful buzz. Now that's America. With all the animosity directed at law enforcement officers, especially since the inception of Black Lives Matter movement, it sometimes takes tragedy to bring Americans together again. And that's exactly what happened when a young African-American named Jermaine appeared at the Chelsea Manhattan bombing site to offer police and firefighters working the scene coffee from Starbucks. And with 2 bomb explosions, this one in New York City and another in New Jersey, plus a knife attack at the Minnesota Mall, all occurring during the weekend, this particular scene warmed the heart. And there is a video of this where he's serving these people coffee from Starbucks. It's a small token of appreciation, but I'm sure it was appreciated largely by the people that were out there working, that somebody would care enough to try to do something nice for them. The next one that we have here is off the Free Range Report. Nearly 1/3 of Forest Service road mileage closed in Montana. Now, say while these bombs are being set off and the stabbings are taking place by all these so-called immigrants, terrorists, the Forest Service is shutting down the roads in Montana where they're claiming the land. Let me read this article to you if I can get her to scroll up here. There we go. Okay, it says, a report last week to the Montana Environmental Quality Control, the EQC, on the roads in Montana that are managed by the U.S. Forest Service and the Bureau of Land Management, the BLM, showed that 9,784 miles, or about 31% of the 1,000 miles of federally managed roads in the state were closed to motorized traffic. The EQC was discussing HJ 13, which passed the Montana State Legislature in 2015 and mandated the EQC study management practices of roads on federal lands. Out of 32,000 miles of system roads, 9,784 of them, or about 31% of that, are level 1 closed roads, stated legislative researcher Joe Coleman in his testimony. HJ 13 passed the state legislature in April with bipartisan support, as large numbers of Montanans have expressed concerns with federal land management policies, particularly road closures, restricting the public's ability to access public lands for recreation. The resolution was sponsored by State Representative Kerry White, Republican Bozeman, who also serves as spokesman for the group Citizens for Balanced Use, or the CBU. CBU is one of Montana's most prominent advocates for multiple use of public land and often fights against road closures and new federal wilderness designations. In an interview on the Voices of Montana radio program on Friday, White said that the loss of the road access portions to federally managed public lands was leading to fewer opportunities for Montanans to hunt, fish, camp, and otherwise recreate on public land. He also noted the frustration that many Montanans feel when road accesses, which have been open for many years and used by multiple generations, are cut off. We are receiving, with Citizens for Balanced Use, many emails and phone calls from people that are trying to get their favorite hunting place out on these lands, and they're finding new signs, new gates, new closures on these lands, and that takes away our access and our ability to recreate, hunt, fish, camp, and all those things, White stated. In the interview, White also took the Associated Press, the AP, to task for vastly understating the mileage of road closures in its report on the EQC hearings on HJ 13. In September 10th article, which was republished by several media outlets across the state, initially stated at least 1,000 miles of roughly 32,000 miles of federally controlled roads in Montana are closed to cars, trucks, and snowmobiles, far less than 9,784 miles of closure actively stated in the report to the EQC. White expressed concern that the proliferation of the AP article would lead to Montanans believing that only a small amount of federally managed public road miles were closed, and stated that he was flabbergasted by the numbers in this story. In an email to Media Trackers, AP reporter Allison Noon, who authorized the article, acknowledged the error and stated that the mistake had been corrected. We've corrected the story to say, according to legislative research Joe Coleman, more than 9,000 miles of roads on federal lands in Montana are closed to cars, trucks, and snowmobiles, Noon wrote. So there's that information. They take it over, then they shut it down. Public lands that are not public. The next one we have here is off of viralliberty.com. Hillary Clinton: Christians in America must abandon faith in Christ and adhere to the new liberal laws. Clinton just said that Christians must deny their faith through the enforcement of laws by stating that Christian belief in being pro-life and anti-abortion must change, and that this should be done through laws and political will. If Christians must change Christian teachings in regards to abortion, then what Hillary Clinton is essentially saying is that Christians must deny their faith. Hillary Clinton, speaking at the Women in World Summit on April 23rd, made the statement. For too many women are denied access to reproductive health care and safe childbirth, and laws don't count for much if they aren't enforced. Rights have to exist in practice, not just on papers. Laws have to be backed up with resources and political will, and deep-seated cultural codes. Religious beliefs and structural bias have to be changed. Notice that she says that the change of Christian beliefs is the unfinished business of the 21st century, which means she wants to persecute Christians. God willing, Donald Trump will vanquish this witch in the elections. The most horrific persecution of the Christians is happening right now. Christians are being killed and tortured in the most demonic and cruel ways you can imagine, and it's happening in Mexico. Hundreds of thousands of people slaughtered, countless innocents forced under the yoke of the most horrific and sinister tyranny. But there is hope, for tens of thousands of Christians are raising arms and fighting back. The next article I have for you is off of Americans Freedom Fighters, the AFF. It says, breaking, Hillary involved in secret fatal plane crash, Navy SEAL dead, media doesn't dare touch this. For years, we have given the story over and over again that Hillary Clinton is fine and she's perfectly healthy. The storyline gradually morphed into Hillary fell and suffered concussion, which then in turn led to brain clots. Well, color me not surprised, but apparently that was all a lie told to a couple that wouldn't know the truth if it bit them. WikiLeaks has released another round of emails exposing some major bombshells around Hillary. In this latest batch of emails, WikiLeaks revealed that Hillary Clinton was apparently in a C-12 Huron aircraft that was forced to make an emergency landing at the Awaz International Airport. This airport happened to be located on the border of Iran and Iraq. The landing was clearly less than smooth, more of a crash landing, causing the aircraft to skid off the runway and crash. This left Hillary unconscious and bleeding profusely, according to reports released by WikiLeaks. The report indicates that Hillary was on some sort of secret mission and traveling with members of the SEAL Team 4. One of the members of that team was reportedly killed when the aircraft crash landed. The government had previously claimed that Commander Job W. Price died of possible suicide. His death was listed as a non-combat related injury. Commander Price was leader of this highly specialized American Special Forces unit. The mission was to protect high-ranking diplomats traveling in Middle Eastern and Asian combat zones. U.S. military flight logs recorded by Russian air and space forces confirmed that Commander Price and other members of the U.S. Navy SEAL Team 4 left their base in Uragan province, Afghanistan, on a flight to U.S. Naval Support Activity Bahrain, where they met up with the then Secretary of State Hillary, and all of them transferred to the C-12 Huron and proceeded to fly to Baghdad. Within minutes of leaving Bahrain airspace, the C-12 Huron carrying Hillary and her U.S. Navy SEAL protectors without notice deviated from their assigned flight path for unknown reasons. They then headed directly toward Iran Awaz International Airport. Coincidentally, Iran President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad had previously landed on an unscheduled visit. Now, that was never reported on the mainstream. The next one we have here is off of the usnews.com. FBI agents can pose as journalists, Inspector General says. Agents may impersonate journalists while conducting undercover investigations, and an agent who posed as an editor with Associated Press during 2007 investigation did not violate agency policies, the Department of Justice Office of the Inspector General found in a report released on Thursday. The conclusion sparked across social media by journalists, civil rights groups, and some legal experts who have argued that the practice, by its very existence, threatens to heighten public mistrust of reporters, damage journalist credibility, and have a chilling effect on sources and whistleblowers who may fear and the media are actually undercover agents. The Associated Press is deeply disappointed by the Inspector General's findings, which effectively condone the FBI's impersonation of an AP journalist in 2007. Vice President Paul Colford said in a statement, such action compromises the ability of free press to gather the news safely and effectively and raise serious constitutional concerns. The Inspector General's report acknowledged that the practice calls for a higher level of approval by FBI supervisors than was in place in 2007. Policies on impersonating journalists at the time were less than clear, it found. However, a new interim policy adopted this June, one that permits agents to pose as journalists so long as they get approval from 2 high-ranking officials, and an undercover review committee at headquarters meets that requirement. We believe the new interim policy on undercover activists that involve FBI employees posing as members of the news media is significant improvement to FBI policies that existed, the Inspector General wrote in the 26-page report. The Associated Press and the American Civil Liberties Union, however, maintain the new measures are insufficient. The FBI guidelines adopted in 2016 in response to this incident still permit the FBI to impersonate news organizations and other third parties without their consent in certain cases, and fail to address the host of other dangers associated with the FBI hacking. ACLU Legislative Counsel Nima Singh Gilani said in a statement. The review stemmed from a June 2007 investigation into a series of bomb threats sent by email to Timberline High School outside Seattle. The email sparked repeated evacuations over the course of a week. The culprit, later found to be a 15-year-old student, masked his location by using proxy servers, and local law enforcement ultimately appealed to FBI for help. The agent with the FBI's Cybercrime Task Force, posing as an editor for the Associated Press, contacted the suspect by email, eventually sending the teen fake news articles and photographs that program. As soon as the boy clicked one of the photos, his location was revealed to agents. He confessed shortly after his arrest, and he pleaded guilty July the 18th. It wasn't until 7 years later the FBI's methods were revealed. Christopher Soghoian, an activist and principal technologist at the ACLU and previously a technologist at the Federal Trade Commission, tweeted a link in October 2014 to internal documents posted to the website of Electronic Frontier Foundation, which had been obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request in 2011. Buried on page 61 and 62 were apparent copies of fake Seattle Times news stories the agents were then planning to email. The Seattle Times broke the story that day. It soon spread nationwide. The Associated Press sent a letter to then Attorney General Eric Holder protesting the method. Other newspapers also expressed concern, joined by groups like the Committee to Protect Journalists and the ACLU. FBI Director James Comey had previously called the practice lawful and, in a rare case, appropriate. And let me scroll up a little bit here. Okay. Says that technique was proper and appropriate under Justice Department and FBI guidelines at the time, he wrote in a New York Times op-ed in November 2014. Every undercover operation involves deception, which has long been a critical tool in fighting crime. The FBI's use of such techniques is subject to close oversight, both intentionally and by the courts that review our work. So how do journalists do their jobs and tell people that are giving them information that they will be kept secret and safe? Trust them if the FBI is doing this kind of stuff. The next one we have here is off dcclothesline.com. It says, well, we can get the ads to go away. There we go. Little girl's lemonade stand shut for not getting a $3,500 permit. Just a little bit misleading because the permit is not $3,500. The permit's $200, but all the other stuff that she's got to get along with the permit, all the other add-ons to that, come up to about $3,500. So we'll read the article here. It says, Orange County, California. Annabelle Lockwood makes the best homemade lemonade around Fountain Valley, using her grandma's recipe, homemade stand built by her father, and a lot of passion. She serves gourmet refreshments, classic pink lemonade, and flavors like peach, blueberry, ginger, and watermelon to eager customers and charitable events. But her passion is being tested by the regulatory hand of the state. Orange County authorities shut down Annabelle's small business and gave her 30 days to get the proper permit and license. The permit will cost around $200, but in order to secure the permit, Annabelle will have to meet a bevy of government requirements costing $3,500. just to serve fresh squeezed fruit juice to thirsty passers-by. According to GoFundMe account set up by Lockwoods to help meet this financial burden levied by the state, number one, she needs to upgrade her cart to get it up to commercial standards in order to pass the inspection. Number two, she needs to make the lemonade in a licensed facility. Licensed kitchens require liability insurance, a business license, and deposit, and an hourly monthly fee for use. Number three, she needs commercial grade dispensers and bottles. The family has received enormous support after the media began telling Annabelle's story, but in the meantime, she's had to turn down a wedding, corporate events, movies in the park, and church events, according to local KTLA 5. Annabelle had previously set up her stand to help charities such as Children's Cancer Research and Homeless Services, but that was put on hold pending government permits. She's also had to turn down a wedding, corporate events, movies in the park, and church events. This isn't just another business venture, it's becoming a life lesson for a young, ambitious entrepreneur. She will be able to do much more in the community as well as charity and school events to help others. She's extremely passionate about her business, and we are proud of her for creating something that so many others can enjoy. It's turning out to be a hard and fast lesson on how government requirements on business, many of which play no role in protecting people or the environment, put a heavy, unnecessary burden on aspiring entrepreneurs. Revenue collection is often the only driver of government permits and licenses. Bearing down on the age-old tradition of youngsters setting up a lemonade stand demonstrates how obsessed the state has become in regulating small business. It appears that Annabelle made it through the gauntlet with the help of many who donated to her GoFundMe account after reading her story. Others are not so fortunate, though. In Portland, Oregon, an 11-year-old girl wanted to sell mistletoe from their farm at Holiday Market to help her dad pay for her braces, which cost $5,000. But the Parks Bureau refused to let her set up without a permit, lease, or concession agreement. She was told she could beg instead. How sick is that? But I do have a feel good for you. And this I'm going to do on a screen share because it is video. So we're going to try to do this so that you can see it, and we'll hit the screen share and we'll pull her up here and we'll share it. There we go, and we'll play it and we'll put it on the big screen.
There are 1,075 students at Montford Middle School in Tallahassee, Florida. But there's only one big man on campus, and that's Bo Paskey.
I've seen you before just standing there playing your DS. And then all of a sudden, boom, you become the most popular kid in school. What happened?
Fate happened. Kindness happened. And it happened when a single mom and her young son needed it most.
The autism, he was diagnosed when he was 3. He won't ever hold a real job. He won't ever play on team sports. Essentially, as a mom, it's almost a life sentence. Just knowing that your child will not be able to live a normal, typical life, and that it will always be hard for them, always be hard for you.
So when you look in those eyes, what do you see?
Love. This kid, he literally loves everybody and everything. And as you can see, he's super affectionate. But I think the part that I love most about him is just his heart and his spirit is so beautiful. And I didn't really appreciate that before.
Nobody did until Tuesday, August 30th, the day the lives of Bo Paskey and Florida State wide receiver Travis Rudolph intersected at a cafeteria lunch table.
There's a lot of noise in the cafeteria, and sometimes he'll sit with his classmates, sometimes he'll sit alone because of noise level.
Something just clicked, and I seen like Bo sitting by himself. Maybe I can just go see, like, if I can just be a friend, a new friend to him,
I saw Travis straight over there, and knowing who Bo was, I thought that was a perfect opportunity to get a picture.
He said, "Hey, can I sit with you?" And I said, "Sure, why not?"
He had told me that he's a Florida State fan. He actually asked me if I was in the NFL. I told him, nah, not yet.
Spoke volumes that he took the time. even the just few minutes that he had there with my child, it meant everything. It meant everything.
Just to see that his mom was that proud of what I did, and I feel like I didn't even do nothing. So it was just really touching.
He said that made you a football player, and I love it so much.
That photo and Leah's heartwarming Facebook post about that simple, powerful moment resonated with people around the world. And Bo wasn't alone anymore. He was at Florida State's comeback win against Ole Miss, where his new best friend got a TD pass. And a touchdown! Travis Rudolph! He considers you a hero.
I mean, I still see myself as Travis, but that's just a blessing for someone to consider me as a hero.
In a time where everybody's so filled with hate and ugliness towards each other, look at what a little message of love can do. People can reach. Who knew that a simple act like that could teach that kind of a lesson, have that kind of an impact, change that kind of perspective? It means everything.
Okay. There is a wonderful story, and I hope that everybody appreciated that as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. I tell you what, if there's people in your life that that you haven't paid much attention to, or maybe you've ignored them because they're different than you, you know, you see them at the store, you see them at your school, or you see them you know, out and about, work or wherever, and you just maybe ignored them, maybe shunned them because they're different than you. Maybe you need to make friends with them. Could change your life. Could be a real blessing. So that was your feel good for today. And I will remind everybody about Barry. Please tell all your friends, bring everybody to the chat room tomorrow. That'll be at 2 o'clock, but we'll have the news here at noon. I want you to join me for the news at noon tomorrow. Who knows what we'll have to report? Every day's different. That's one sure thing about it. And I want you to go out today, kick off your shoes, stick your feet down in the grass, balance yourself, get a little perspective, take a deep breath of fresh air, be glad you're alive. We'll see you back here at noon tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Bye.